On a coral reef, survival is rarely about strength. Entire populations can fail when a single individual disappears. Among the tentacles of a sea anemone lives a small, brightly colored fish that seems unremarkable at first glance. Clownfish are familiar, even iconic. But beneath their vivid patterns and close association with anemones lies one of the most precise population-level survival strategies found in nature. A clownfish group is not a loose collection of individuals. It is a tightly structured society. At the top of this hierarchy is a single dominant female. Beneath her is a breeding male. All other members of the group remain smaller, non-breeding males, waiting. This arrangement is deliberate. It reduces conflict, conserves energy, and ensures that reproduction can continue even under unstable conditions. Life on a reef is unpredictable. Predators pass through. Storms reshape habitats. Individuals vanish without warning. In many species, the loss of a breeding female would mean the slow collapse of the group. Reproduction would stall. Numbers would decline. Recovery, if it happened at all, would take generations. Clownfish respond differently. When the dominant female disappears, the group does not fragment or disperse. It reorganizes. The largest male begins to change, behavior first, then physiology. Over time, he becomes female, assuming the role that was lost. A smaller male rises to take his place as the new breeding partner. The hierarchy remains intact. Reproduction resumes. This is not an emergency response. It is the system working as designed. Gender change in clownfish is not about flexibility for its own sake, nor is it a biological curiosity. It is a mechanism for stability. By allowing roles to shift internally, the group avoids the risks of searching for new mates, defending new territory, or competing with outsiders. Continuity is preserved from within. Seen this way, the anemone is more than shelter, and the clownfish is more than a colorful resident. Together, they form a regulated unit where survival depends on cooperation, role clarity, and the ability to respond quickly to loss. This is the foundation of the story, not a novelty about changing sex, but a carefully evolved solution to a persistent problem: how to keep a population functioning in an environment where disruption is inevitable. What follows is not just how this change happens, but why it happens. How a small fish reveals a much larger truth about adaptation, resilience, and the quiet systems that allow life to continue. The stability of a clownfish group depends on more than the ability to change sex. It depends on a strict social order that prevents that change from happening too often. Within the anemone, every individual knows its position. Size determines rank. The largest fish is always the dominant female. The second largest is the breeding male. All others remain smaller, sexually inactive males. This hierarchy is enforced through subtle but constant social pressure. Dominant individuals assert their position through brief displays and controlled aggression, not prolonged conflict. The result is a group that appears calm, but is carefully regulated at all times. This structure serves a critical purpose. Gender change is powerful, but it is also costly. Reorganizing reproductive roles requires time, energy, and physiological transformation. If multiple individuals attempted to change at once, the group would enter a period of instability precisely when continuity matters most. The hierarchy prevents that. It ensures that only one individual is ever in line to take over. When the dominant female is present, the breeding male remains male. His growth is restrained by social signals from above. Hormonal pathways are suppressed, not by genetics, but by behavior. As long as the hierarchy holds, the system remains dormant, ready but inactive. The moment the female disappears, those restraints lift. What follows is not chaos, but a controlled sequence. The largest male does not immediately change sex. First, his behavior shifts. He becomes more assertive. He occupies the space the female once held. Only after this social transition is established does the physiological transformation begin. Hormone levels change. Gonadal tissue restructures. Over time, the male becomes female, capable of producing eggs. This delay is essential. It allows the group to stabilize before reproduction resumes. During this transition, the second largest male begins to grow, preparing to assume the breeding role. The hierarchy reforms quickly, minimizing the period during which reproduction is interrupted. From the outside, this may appear seamless, but it is a finely balanced process. The group is vulnerable during this window. Predators do not pause. Food availability does not improve. Yet the system is designed to absorb the shock of loss without collapsing. The anemone plays a crucial role in this balance. It provides protection but also limits space. Only a small number of clownfish can occupy a single host. This spatial constraint reinforces the hierarchy. There's no room for surplus breeders, no advantage in challenging the order. Cooperation is not optional. It is enforced by the environment itself. This combination of social structure and environmental constraint allows clownfish to solve a problem many species cannot. They do not need to search for mates. They do not need to compete with neighboring groups. They do not need to disperse when a key individual is lost. Everything required for continuity already exists within the group. But this efficiency comes at a cost. The system depends on precise timing and clear roles. If the hierarchy is disrupted too often, or if individuals are removed faster than the system can respond, stability erodes. Gender change is not unlimited flexibility. It is a controlled response designed for specific conditions. Understanding this balance is essential because it reveals the true nature of the adaptation. The clownfish does not survive because it can change sex. It survives because it knows when not to. And it is this restraint, this disciplined control of change, that keeps the population functioning when disruption becomes unavoidable. The moment when a clownfish begins to change sex is not a moment of strength. It is a moment of vulnerability. From the outside, the process appears smooth. The dominant female disappears. The largest male shifts roles, and the group continues. But within that transition lies a narrow window where the system is exposed. Reproduction pauses. Social roles are in flux. The hierarchy that once enforced stability must reassemble itself while external pressures continue unabated. This period is unavoidable. Hormonal change takes time. Gonadal tissue must be restructured. Neural and behavioral patterns must realign. During this transformation, the individual in transition cannot fully perform either reproductive role. The group is temporarily dependent on a system that is still forming. For a population living in a stable environment, this delay might be insignificant. On a coral reef, it is not. Predation does not slow. Competition for food remains constant. The anemone offers protection, but it cannot eliminate risk entirely. The group must survive this interval without the full reproductive capacity that normally anchors its continuity. This is where the limits of the adaptation become visible. Gender change is often described as flexibility, but in practice, it is tightly constrained. Only one individual can change at a time, only under specific social conditions, only if the hierarchy has been preserved long enough for the system to recognize the loss. If too many individuals are removed too quickly, the process cannot keep up. The system does not accelerate. It fails. Young clownfish cannot immediately fill these roles. Size matters. Experience matters. A juvenile cannot assume dominance simply because a vacancy exists. Growth takes time, and until that growth occurs, the group remains incomplete. The adaptation that ensures long-term survival offers little protection against rapid or repeated disruption. This vulnerability explains why clownfish societies are so strict. Aggression is suppressed. Growth is regulated. Individuals remain smaller than they might otherwise become. These limitations are not disadvantages. They are safeguards. By slowing growth and enforcing order, the group reduces the likelihood that multiple transitions will be required at once. The system is not designed for constant upheaval. It is designed for occasional loss. This distinction is critical. Gender change does not make clownfish resilient to all forms of disturbance. It makes them resilient to specific predictable risks. The loss of a single breeding individual can be absorbed. The loss of several cannot. The adaptation is precise, not universal. During this transition, the behavior of the group changes subtly. Individuals stay closer to the anemone. Movements become more cautious. Social interactions intensify as roles are renegotiated. These shifts are temporary, but they reflect the underlying tension of the moment. The group is functioning, but not at full capacity. From a distance, nothing appears broken. From within, everything depends on timing. This is the cost of continuity. To preserve long-term stability, the system must pass through brief periods of weakness. It accepts short-term risk to avoid permanent collapse. That trade-off only works if disruption remains within expected limits. And that raises a critical question. If this system depends so heavily on controlled loss and careful timing, what happens when the environment introduces pressures the system was never designed to absorb? The clownfish system was shaped by a world where disruption was occasional, not constant. Loss happened, but slowly. Change arrived, but in intervals the group could absorb. Under those conditions, gender change functioned as an elegant solution. Modern reefs are increasingly different. Environmental pressures now arrive faster than the system was designed to handle. Rising water temperatures alter the health of coral and anemones. Storms damage reef structures more frequently. Human activity introduces noise, pollution, and physical disturbance into habitats that once changed gradually. Each of these factors increases the likelihood that individuals will be removed from a group in rapid succession. When this happens, the system begins to strain. The loss of one dominant female can be managed. The loss of two, in close sequence, cannot. The hierarchy does not have time to reform. The largest male may still be in transition when another vacancy appears. The remaining individuals are too small, too young, or too inexperienced to respond. The mechanism stalls, not because it is flawed, but because it is being asked to do more than it was built to do. This is where the difference between flexibility and resilience becomes clear. Flexibility allows a system to adjust within known boundaries. Resilience allows it to withstand sustained pressure. The clownfish adaptation excels at the first. It struggles with the second. Environmental change also affects the cues that regulate the system. Temperature influences hormone production. Stress alters behavior. Changes in food availability affect growth rates. When these signals shift, the timing of gender change can be delayed or disrupted. The system still exists, but it becomes less reliable. Even the anemone, the foundation of the clownfish's stability, is vulnerable. Bleaching events reduce its ability to provide protection. A weakened anemone exposes the group to predation and forces individuals to spend more energy on defense and movement. Energy diverted to survival is energy unavailable for growth and transformation. Under these conditions, the cost of transition increases. The window of vulnerability lengthens. Reproduction may pause for longer periods. The margin that once absorbed loss narrows. Importantly, this does not result in immediate collapse. Clownfish populations often persist despite mounting pressure. But persistence is not the same as stability. The system continues to function, but with less efficiency and greater risk. Success becomes uneven. Some groups recover, others do not. This unevenness is difficult to observe in isolation. A single healthy group can mask the decline of others. From a distance, the species appear adaptable. Up close, the limits are visible. What this reveals is not a failure of the adaptation, but its precision. The system was never meant to solve every problem. It evolved to address a specific challenge. How to maintain reproduction when a key individual is lost. When the environment introduces new pressures faster than the system can respond, even the most elegant solution begins to fray. This is the paradox of specialization. The more precisely an adaptation is tuned, the less tolerant it becomes of conditions outside its design range. The clownfish system is highly effective within its bounds. Outside them, it offers no guarantees. And this brings the story to a critical threshold. Gender change keeps the population functioning only as long as the environment allows the hierarchy to reset. When that reset becomes uncertain, the question is no longer how the system works, but what it ultimately reveals about adaptation itself, and about the fragile balance that allows continuity in a changing world. The story of the clownfish is often told as a curiosity, a small fish that can change sex when circumstances demand it, a clever trick, a biological exception. but seen in full, it is something quieter and more instructive. Gender change in clownfish is not an expression of freedom. It is an expression of constraint. Every part of the system, the hierarchy, the anemone, the timing of growth, the suppression of reproduction, exists to serve one goal: continuity, not abundance, not expansion, simply the ability to persist in a world where loss is inevitable. The adaptation works because it is narrow, disciplined, and carefully limited. This is what makes it effective. The clownfish does not attempt to be endlessly flexible. It does not allow every individual to reproduce. It does not permit constant restructuring. Instead, it restricts change, controlling when it can occur and who is allowed to initiate it. In doing so, it preserves stability across generations. This stands in contrast to how adaptation is often imagined. We tend to think of survival as a matter of innovation, speed, and responsiveness, but many of nature's most enduring systems rely on restraint. They succeed not by reacting to every disturbance, but by responding only to those they were designed to absorb. The clownfish reveals this principle with unusual clarity. When the system works, it works quietly. Groups remain small. Conflict is minimal. Reproduction continues without interruption. From the outside, nothing appears remarkable. It is only when the system is stressed that its design becomes visible. Loss exposes structure. Disruption reveals limits. Under pressure, the adaptation shows both its strength and its boundaries. It can absorb a single absence. It can reorganize internally. But it cannot compensate for repeated or accelerated loss. It does not scale indefinitely, and it was never meant to. This is not a flaw. It's a reminder that every solution in nature is conditional. The clownfish survives because its environment once changed slowly enough for its system to respond. When that pace increases, the adaptation does not fail dramatically. It simply becomes less reliable. Continuity becomes harder to maintain. The margin for error narrows. In this way, the clownfish is not an anomaly. It is a case study. Across ecosystems, many species rely on similar precise mechanisms. Solutions evolved for specific patterns of risk. When those patterns shift, the solutions are tested not by their cleverness, but by their tolerance for change. What the clownfish teaches is not that life can endlessly adapt, but that adaptation always carries assumptions about timing, about scale, about the frequency of loss. When those assumptions hold, life persists. When they do not, even the most elegant systems begin to strain. And yet, there's something quietly hopeful in this story. The clownfish does not endure by dominating its environment or escaping it. It endures by fitting within it, by aligning behavior, biology, and social structure into a system that wastes little and responds only when necessary. Its survival strategy is not dramatic. It is precise. In a changing world, that precision becomes visible and fragile. The future of such systems will depend not only on their ability to adapt, but on the pace at which they are asked to do so. Continuity, as this small fish demonstrates, is not guaranteed by flexibility alone. It is protected by balance. On the reef, survival is rarely about strength. It is about knowing when change is required and when restraint is the only way to endure.